quiet, the town is calm, business as usual. In the morning hours around 8 o'clock, most of the businesses were shut down, but right now we can see that the town, people have been coming to town. Most of the businesses have begun to open. And also in the morning we saw that the other students who had gone to school, it is as if they had not received the information that they're supposed to have closed the schools. But so far right now, all the students have gone back to their homes. But Mombasa still remains calm. And if my cameraman could just pan, would show you that business is as usual. As you can see, people are just walking around. All you can see is that the traffic police is ensuring that traffic flows. There's traffic flow in the central business district. The businesses are open. The streets, people are walking in the streets just as a normal day. What we've seen so far is that there is a lot of there is security. We've seen the patrol vehicles. We've seen the patrol lorries with the policemen going round to ensure there is security, there is peace. So far, we've also seen that there are a few activists who had made it to the central business district, but so far they have not started anything. And we have information that also, as an island, we have roadblocks in different entries to the island. There are police manning the roadblocks just to ensure that no one comes to the island to cause any chaos. And we also have information that the ODM legislators are holed up in a meeting in Nyali so far. We do not know what is transpiring, but so far everything in Mombasa County is calm. There was also a meeting by the UDA supporters at Cannon Towers, but they were dispersed this morning, so the meeting did not go on. And generally, Mombasa is a calm town today as we wait to see what will transpire, but security has been beefed up. Everything is just going on smoothly. People are going about their businesses. Children are at home, as had been announced and directed by the Interior Cabinet Secretary together with the Education Minister, Cabinet Secretary. So far what you can say, Mombasa is calm. We will be keeping vigil just to know what will be happening. We'll keep you updated to know what exactly is happening. So back to you at studio, Hashim.
Well, thank you so much. That is Ann Mburu, our senior reporter there in Mombasa County, of course, giving us a status update on what is happening at the coastal city. You've just heard from Ann and you've seen the live images there as provided by KBC Channel 1, the CBD, the Central Business District of Mombasa County. There is calmness, business as usual. You've seen the traffic ongoing smoothly, and police, of course, have heightened security, promising to keep the lives of Kenyans and property safe. And of course, at this juncture, let me introduce the panel that I have on my side. As I told you, we have double panel sessions, and of course the other side will be led by none other by Ben Troy Njue. But before I head to Ben, let me get to introduce my guests on this particular side. I have on my immediate left Julius Wambua, a member of the Political Parties Liaison Committee. Karibu sana, Julius.
Thank you.
And of course, a notable figure, chairman of the SUPKEM, that is Hassan Olenado. Karibu sana, chairman.
Asante sana. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And of course, let's head over to the other side of the studio so that you can get to see Ben. Who do you have on the other side of the studio?
Well, a very good morning to our viewers from wherever they are watching us from. Indeed, today is a day that we are expecting that Kenyans will find the voice of reason. And no one wants to see the country go down to the drain. And that is why we also here to try and put things into perspective. Yes, indeed, we are having a double panel. And before I begin, let me introduce my guest this morning. From my extreme right, we have Dr. Joyce Mutinda, who is the chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission. Madam, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Good to have you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning.
Welcome. And just next to her, we have Bishop Callisto Odede, who is the presiding bishop at Christ is the Answer Ministries, or if you want, CITAM. Karibu sana, Bishop.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone.
And maybe to have a look at what Nairobi is having, because in the morning, of course, there is a lot of police presence in the streets, and a lot of shops have closed. And maybe let me begin from this side of the panel. And I do remember even the clergy, let me begin with you, Bishop. Even the clergy have offered, not only have they issued a statement, they have also offered to arbitrate and mediate. But both sides, they don't seem to be letting up.
Yes, there's been attempts from several different sections of the clergy, the Catholics, the NCCK, the Evangelical Alliance, to try and mediate over this situation. At some point, we thought we were making some breakthroughs and inroads, but it does appear like there's a stalemate that we cannot get over, as each section seems to have dug in. At least part of the section seems to have dug in quite deeply in their position, perhaps feeling of a bit of disappointment. So yes, the clergy have tried. The clergy have issued statements. From the evangelical side, we have issued statements. The Catholics and the NCCK jointly have issued statements, basically urging the country to remain peaceful and to give dialogue a chance.
Indeed. To come to you, Madam, I remember a couple of days back you issued, as the National Gender and Equality Commission, you issued a statement in regards to what is happening in the country. And I remember in one of that you did point out Article 53 on the protection of children. We saw these violent demos have even roped in our children who are going to school. And the government yesterday did announce that indeed in Nairobi and Mombasa, all the days secondary and primary school will be shut today as they assess the security situation. What comes to your mind?
Thank you very much for that question. Actually, what comes to my mind when I think of Article 53 of the Constitution of Kenya is the fact that we have forgotten that these children have a right to be protected from all forms of violence. In fact, that is sub-article D of Article 53. Now, as we protect them, there is another right. In fact, it comes before this particular right, and is free compulsory education. Now, when we tell the children to stay at home, we are protecting them, yes, from all violence or what we anticipate was going to be violence. But we have infringed on their right to education. Now, this is only happening in Nairobi, in Kisumu, and in Mombasa. We have not even said anything about the national examinations that they are likely to sit at the end of the year. It is going to be set an exam for the whole country. Now, what about the children who never went to school and we don't know whether they go tomorrow or the day after? They have missed out in all those hours, but the exam will not take care of that. So as we take care of rights, we need to think of the rights of the children holistically. And not only of the children, also the rights of other people in this country. And I have in mind the issue of protesting. It is there in the Constitution, but we fail to read two words. One, it is said that right has to be a demonstration that is peaceful and we have to be unarmed. It's when we get armed that you find now we want to hide the children, that the children cannot continue with education. It's when we get armed that you find the police have now to protect property. So I would call on both sides to remember we have rights to take care of, and our right to peacefully and unarmed demonstrate should not infringe on rights of the others. Thank you.
Indeed. And back to you, Hashim, for the guests to make their opening statement. But it's also good to mention that we also have our reporters on the ground. We had what is happening in Mombasa. Everything seems to be calm, at least for now. And there are leaders who are meeting in Mombasa in regards to the same. But we also have our colleagues who are also keeping tabs with what is happening at the Kamukunji grounds, at the Jacaranda grounds, along James Kangede, at the Nairobi CBD. And also we are also keen to look at the business aspect, which is always, and especially when we talk about the big towns, is quite affected. Over to you, Hashim.
Conversation that is currently ongoing here. The hashtag is NewsCheck. You can also join in the conversation in our KBC Channel 1, all platforms on social media at Abdiaziz Hashim. You can be part of the conversation, but I do understand that let's head over to Narok, where we do understand Nancy Okware is currently there so that she can give us a little bit of an update of what is happening in Narok County. We also do understand President William Ruto is expected in Narok to launch the Olshero Girls Secondary School, a bottom-up product of the 100% in the national CDF. Okware, is the president already there, and what have you been able to see in Narok? Is there general calmness in that particular area?
Well, a very good morning to you, Abdiaziz, back in the studio. We are coming to you live from Suswa town right here in Narok County. It is just about 70 kilometers from Narok town. And as you have said, President William Ruto is expected here to launch the Olesharo Secondary School. The president is yet to arrive, but we will be proceeding to that location just to get the proceedings live once the head of state arrives here. But following up on the countrywide demonstrations that have been called by Azimio la Umoja, the situation in this particular area is quite calm. There are no demonstrations that are taking place at the moment. The residents are going on with their daily activities, and of course today being a market day at this particular market, this particular town, we've been able to see that most of the shops have been opened, and of course transport activities are taking place as they usually take place. And we've managed to speak to a number of residents. They have said that they will not be engaging in the demonstrations that have been taking place after being called by Azimio la Umoja. They say that indeed the cost of living is high, but they would like for calm to prevail in the country. And of course I'll be speaking to one of the residents just to understand why they are not taking part in the demonstrations. Karibu sana, uko moja kwa moja kwenye KBC Channel 1. Tueleze kwanza jina lako na hali ikoje hapa kufikia sasa?
Kwa majina kwanza nafahamika kama Samir. Mimi ni mkaaji wa Suswa. Hapa ukiona hali iko tulivu, hatuna mambo ya maandamano. Sisi hapa kama wenyeji wa Suswa tuko mpilika kutafuta lishe ya siku.
Na pengine mnatoa wito gani kwa wale viongozi ambao wamekuwa wakiita maandamano, na pia wito wenu kwa serikali wakati huu ambapo Wakenya wanakabiliana na kipindi kigumu cha maisha?
Okay, first of all tulikuwa tunapenda upande opposition waende ile story walisema bipartisan, wakae chini waelewane, sababu saizi wakipigana serikali na opposition kupigana, sisi wananchi ndio tunaumia. Kwa kusema ukweli, gharama ya maisha saizi iko juu, lakini itabidi tukubali hali kwa sasa venye iko, na tupee president wetu William Samoei Ruto hii nafasi atuendeleshe hadi apate msimamo.
Na umeshuhudia athari gani ama zile changamoto ambazo mmeona maeneo mengine ambayo yamekuwa na maandamano? Manake tumeona uharibifu wa mali, lakini upande huu wa Suswa mkaamua kwamba hamtakuwa mnashiriki.
Kwanza kabisa upande wa maandamano inatukera, sababu vitu yenye inaharibika ni zetu. Halafu kwa saizi maandamano si mzuri. Tunafaa tutafute suluhisho, kama serikali watafute suluhisho. Kwanza aswa sisi vijana tunatumika sana upande wa maandamano. Na mimi ningependa kurai vijana wenzangu, maneno ya maandamano si poa. Wakam tutafute for solution, gavai to create a job. Kama hii mambo ya housing, tungoje gavaa venye itatulonchia na tuendelee na kazi.
Asante sana kwa kuzungumza nasi. That is one of the area residents right here in Suswa town. As I have told you earlier, calm is really prevailing right here. Businesses are ongoing normally, and of course transport operations are going on as usual. And of course the area residents are calling on the two leaders to come to the table and continue with their negotiations so as to enable the growth of the economy and of course avoid destruction of property. Earlier on, we are aware that in Narok town there were pockets of demonstrators that attempted to light bonfires across the roads. That is at around 6 a.m. And of course, when the police officers arrived on location, they were dispersed. And right now, what we have in Narok town is just police officers taking part and of course restoring calm in the town. I'll be speaking to one last resident. Karibu sana. Tunaona utulivu umeshuhudiwa hapa katika eneo la Suswa. Kwanza tueleze jina lako na ni kwa nini eneo hili mkaamua kwamba hamtashiriki maandamano kuanzia sasa?
Asante sana KBC Channel 1. Mimi kwa majina naitwa Mburungaru Mututwa. Mimi ni mkazi hapa, kiongozi hapa Suswa. Sisi Suswa hatuna maandamano. Na kwa sababu hatuna maandamano, na ni kwa sababu serikali yenye iko sasa ya Rais William Ruto, sisi tunamuunga mkono. Tunasema wanawasimio wapea serikali nafasi atekeleze ile majibu yao ambao wamesema wakati wa kampeni. So mimi nataka kuarifu watu wa Kenya, tupee serikali nafasi watekeleze yale mahitaji ambao wametuambia wakati wa kampeni. Jambo lingine, Suswa ni mahali takatifu. Sisi wa Masai tuna believe Suswa ni mahali takatifu. Hatutaki mapigano, hatutaki maandamano, hatutaki kitu yoyote. Sisi ni wafanya biashara ya ng'ombe, na tunawarifu wale watu wote kutoka all over Kenya, mkuje Suswa mfanye biashara, kwa sababu Suswa ni mahali takatifu kulingana na bila sisi wa Masai. Thank you.
Kwa kifupi, wito wako kwa vijana ambao mara kwa mara wanatumika kusababisha migawanyiko na wanasiasa, unawaambia nini leo hii, hata kwa wale ambao wameamua wataandamana, lakini ule umuhimu wa kudumisha amani?
Mimi nataka kuwasihi wa vijana, kwa asua wale vijana wale wadogo, msitumiwe vibaya. Kwenda maandamano utakufa, hata utakufa bila hata una bibi, bila hata una watoto, bila hata kutoa mali. Usitumiwe na mtu yoyote ati uende uandamane upigwe risasi na ule mtu anakaa in high table. Anakaa kukula peke, watoto wake wako Ulaya, watoto wake wanasoma, ako high school, na wewe hata bibi una. Kwanza tafuta familia, jitegemea familia, ndio hata wewe uwe mtu wa kesho. Usikubali utumiwe ati uingie kwa barabara, ukipigwa risasi wazazi wako wanauliza hiyo kijana yangu wako wapi, na ni wewe umeenda kwa barabara. Na huyo mtu amekupeleka kwa barabara, hata yeye saa hii kwa watoto wake kwa Ulaya wanasoma, wanakula, na wewe badala ya kwenda kujitafutia, wewe unaenda maandamano. Utakosaje kupigwa kama wewe unakiuka sheria ya serikali?
Asante sana kwa kuzungumza nasi. Well, those are just sentiments from the Suswa town area residents. They are calling on Kenyans to exercise caution and of course calm even as they engage in the countrywide demonstrations. But right here in Suswa, calm has been prevailing for the better part of the day, and will continue keeping tabs on what is happening and giving you more updates. But for now, businesses are ongoing as planned, and we are awaiting the arrival of President William Ruto later on in the day. He'll be here to launch the Olesharo Secondary School. But for now, I'd like to hand it back to you, Ben Troinjue and Abdiaziz Hashim at the Broadcasting House.
Well, thank you so much. That is Nancy Okware live from Suswa in Narok County. You can see the situation, the general calmness. And of course, on your screen, you can also see my colleague Giverson, who is currently at Jacaranda grounds. Before I get to engage my guest on this particular panel, let's head over to Giverson. Giverson, what updates do you have for us? We can see the area, it's a little bit bare. Is there calmness in that particular area?
Now, update. This is Jacaranda grounds, and these are live pictures from here. The area is just calm. This is a very huge ground here where Raila Odinga yesterday announced that he'll be holding a rally here, or maybe protesters will be gathering to make or rather to express their views, or rather the anti-government call that the concerns of the high cost of living. But what we can tell you right now is that it's very calm, but police have taken cover. Of course, there are very many entries into these grounds, around 4 or 5 entries into these particular grounds. But you can see police who have about, we can see two Land Cruisers and one Subaru car, and around 20 police officers who I can see who are uniformed. But I've also seen police officers who are in civilian but are armed, of course. But that's all we have here. And of course, wananchi, we just seeing wananchi crisscrossing, just going about their normal activities. So no much, but maybe it's just because it's early, just about 11:30. But normally in the previous demonstrations or rather rallies, it's been happening about maybe noon there, or maybe 1, or rather even after 2 p.m. But we just stand here just to bring you up to date, Abdi. But this is but even as we came towards here, we could see police just along the road, taking cover, but not much of activity. People, even children, women, and even older men, just crisscrossing towns, doing their normal activities. Businesses are quite open here, so there's not so much, but we can tell you, Abdi, also that there are not so many people even on the streets, going along the Jacaranda surroundings. But we keep tabs here, Abdi, just to bring you up to date if anything happens at about maybe noon or even 1 or even about 2, Abdi.
Thank you so much. That is Giverson, currently live in Jacaranda grounds. You have seen the situation in Mombasa, the situation in Narok. Here in the capital, we'll also be having a situation on the Nairobi Central Business District itself, the business situation, and finally in Kisumu. Let me take those particular live images to my particular guests. Let me start here with you, Julius. Julius, you can see the general calmness in the country already. From where you sit, is this good?
I think it's good. Peace can never be repulsive in any shade. And PPLC, the organization which I represent here, was a creation of the Kriegler Commission. After the 2007-2008 post-election violence, the president then, Mwai Kibaki, appointed IREC, that is the Independent Review Commission, that was led by Judge Johann Kriegler. And the reason why he did this was to find out really why our elections seem to move within such a vicious cycle. And one of the things IREC said was that there is a critical lack of dialogue between electoral stakeholders, political parties, the electoral management body, and the registrar of political party and other stakeholders. And that is why he recommended the creation of PPLC. For your information, there are 90 registered political parties in this country. And all of them are members of PPLC, Political Parties Liaison Committee. And the PPLC is enshrined in the Political Parties Act, Section 38. So it is a statutory body whose function is dialogue between political parties, interpolitical parties, political parties and the election management body, political parties and electoral stakeholders, so that at least we can come up with a better electoral environment and a multi-party environment in this country. The challenge we are having now is that the same scenario that we are facing today was there in 2007, we had it in 2013, we had it in 2017, we had it in 2022, we are having it now, all arising from some form of electoral dispute that is now being played outside the Constitution. And PPLC is of the opinion that we all need to sit down. All of us, not a section of the political class, not a section of the religious class, not a section of the professional bodies, but we all need to dialogue. And PPLC is ready to champion that process.
Let me head over to the chairman. Chairman, yesterday a body of religious organization came out. You're also there. You told Kenyans to ensure a day like today, voice of reason prevails. When you see images from Mombasa and Suswa, has that been the case?
Thank you, Abdiaziz. First of all, Assalamu alaikum. I think before I say anything, my brothers and listeners and viewers, I will take this opportunity to send a congratulatory message to the Muslim community across the world for the celebration of the new year of the Islamic calendar, that is 1445. Today is actually the first day of the Islamic calendar. I also congratulate the new Chief Qadi, was just appointed the other day, again, within this period. Just to come back to your question, is that we have been in this for quite a while as a country. And the religious leadership, as have been said by my brother from Political Party Liaisons, we have been in that game since that time, actually from 1992 all through to where we are today. And it's actually saddening that as we speak about what is happening now, in my view, it is a unique situation we have found ourselves. Because for the last 2 years, we have been in campaigns up to election day. Then after elections, we have some stability for a month. Then the new president was sworn in and the new government established. But 8 months down the line, we are back to where we were before elections. The tension that we are seeing today, Kenyans being mobilized, demonstrations going on. And you just ask yourself, when do Kenyans really have an opportunity of working? When do we build this nation? And when do we preach unity among the citizens of this country? And finally, another question, and I like asking myself and Kenyans, is why have we given up and given all what our lives to the political elites of this country? Do we really think that we are going to achieve anything much? Because what we see is that when we have the political elites controlling our minds, our lives, and everything that we do, then every other sector of the society loses out. We are no longer being effective in our own country. And the reason why, what we have been trying to do as religious leaders, we have been trying to call the two political coalitions to come to reason, to come to the table, because the solution cannot be found on the street. And the solution cannot be found by having a hard stand. Both, including the Prime Minister and the President of this country, are Kenyans, just like me and you. And these are two individuals who Kenya trusted to be their leaders. By being trusted to be their leaders, what Kenyans expect from them, they expect from them that human face, people who can actually come and empathize with the Kenyan people whenever they are facing challenges. The issue that is being raised now, the issue of the challenges in the economy of the country, it's not unique to the country, but every country has its own ways of how they deal with the problem. I think our way of dealing with this problem, unfortunately, is purely political. An issue that could have been, it's an economical issue, which have been dealt with through other methods, including dialogue and the kind of arrangements where Kenyans can actually feel comfortable with. We have now taken to the altar of politics. And you find that within the Azimio coalition, you have seen the change of goalposts. The other time, a few months ago, they were talking about the servers, they are talking about electoral justice. Now they have shifted to the finance bill. There is nothing wrong actually addressing an issue that is painful to the Kenyans, but I think we need to find an alternative avenue on how do we deal with this issue. What the religious leadership in this country are saying, we are saying that we want our president to listen to the voices of Kenyan people. We want him to listen, not only to us, but to every other Kenyan, including Raila Odinga. We also want the Azimio leadership, Raila Odinga and his team, to have an opportunity to trust and to believe that this country has a president and a government in place. Because we cannot continue saying that the president is illegitimate, the government is illegitimate. We cannot. And when we want to talk about dialogue, first of all, we have to agree that we have government in place. We have the elected president in place. We may have issues, but those issues were addressed effectively and sufficiently by the institutions established by our own constitution. So we cannot be questioning everything else, because otherwise we actually then have to question every institution that have been established in this country. And that's where the problem lies. So if the Azimio accepts that the President Ruto is the President of the Republic of Kenya, and indeed there is actually a government in place, now they want to engage the government, I think that can open doors for dialogue. So we really urge Azimio, first of all, to swallow the pride and accept that this country has the president. Then from there, I think it can be easy for us to negotiate. We have not given up as the religious leaders. We were yesterday, for the last 2 days, in ups and downs, doing what we normally do, the shuttle diplomacy, engaging both sides. And we are not tired, we are not giving up. We still have hope that they'll give an opportunity for reason to prevail. I want to thank Kenyans, those who have maintained peace up to this point. I want to urge them to continue doing so up to the end of the day, and to allow those who have come out to want to do their business, to do their business. Those who haven't come out, they just, wherever they are, I urge them to remain peaceful, because today, as I talk to you, our children are in our own houses.
Yes.
You know, we have not, you know, and what do we have? What is the future of the children that we are keeping in the house today when the whole world is, when the schools are open? I think we need really to think about it. Thank you.
Not just the religious leaders, I do understand the political parties liaison committee is also going that particular way with the religious organizations.
Yes.
So how far are they listening to you?
Well, these two political parties, political movements are our members. They are our friends. We fraternize a lot. And initially we must understand that the Constitution provides a methodology for the election of a president. It goes ahead and provides a methodology for the challenging of the election of a president. Further, it also provides, if the challenge does not go through, a methodology for assumption of office. So, we must accept from the point number one that there is a legitimate president in office. Now, we are having this conversation amongst us political parties in a non-partisan way. And we have zeroed on this one factor, that it is all about elections, not about UNGA. 6 years ago, UNGA was 100 bob. It has taken 6 years for it to reach 230 or even 190, whatever it is. Do we expect it, if it took 6 years to reach 230, do you expect it to drop to 100 within a month? We have just walked out of a drought. We have not even had the first harvest. So most of these other issues are peripheral issues, and it's all about elections. And that is why we are saying, as political parties, there is a document in the public domain, the Kriegler report, which was like a panacea to most of our electoral issues, even the ones being challenged now by the Azimio Brigade, being replied by the other side. And let's take a small issue, like the election transmission results tallying and transmission path. That is very well, recommendations on that is very well laid out in the Kriegler report. That we should develop a method that is open to the public, that upon losing an election, the loser, the winner, and the Kenyan will know that for certainty, this person has lost, this one has won. I commend the past IEBC commissioners, the commission that has just left, because they did implement a section of the Kriegler report. In that, before 2022, we used to go to Bomas and just wait for everything to stream. You don't know where it's coming from, you don't know. Nobody outside Bomas has those results. Now let's go to 2022. On this small device, you could download all the Form 34As before even Chebukati had them. So it was very easy for everybody to tabulate that process. There is much more that is within the Kriegler report that has not yet been implemented. For example, everybody is saying that the commission is not registering my voters. They are making sure that I don't have voters in my place so that they can rig me. The Kriegler report, the Kriegler recommended that when you go and take that ID, you become a registered voter at that point. So nobody will say, the government is plotting not to register my voters. So we are saying this is the document we have. These were public funds that were spent. Let us implement this. And on the same breath, we spent billions putting up this constitution. Let us stick to the dictates of the constitution. the processes it gives us. And to reiterate what my brother here said, there's a challenge of us having only one song. Because when two people go and lock themselves in a room, and they are calling it bipartisan, and they come out quarreling, you really don't know what happened inside there. How many Kenyans today can say for certain, on such and such a day during the bipartisan talks, this is what this one said, this is what this one did, this is what this one, and this is where they disagreed. Because simply, what we are hearing them saying is that these ones brought their team A, we brought our team B. These ones were not their own people. So what we are saying, let us populate that table further. So that at least the religious society, professional bodies, maybe our development partners, all of us should be around that table, and all registered political parties, so that at least everybody can bring their issues to the table. If that is what we want. So that everybody can bring their issues, we deal with them, and in such a scenario, it's very difficult for somebody to be mischievous.
If you're just joining us, this is the conversation currently ongoing here on News Check. It's all about national cohesion and dialogue. That is our topic this particular morning. And of course, the conversation carries on. Religious bodies as well as professional societies are currently here with us in the studio. And the call is all about dialogue. They have said they will not tire. They will continue trying to reach out to both sides of the aisle to ensure there is transparency and, of course, peace and cohesion in the country. Let me hand it over to Troy. Troy, I do understand you would like, of course, to converse on this particular issue when it comes to the situation we have seen in Mombasa or in Suswa and Jacaranda. All is good as per now. Troy.
Yes, and just to pick it from where I've left it is that always, if you look at the mandamanos, they usually try to be quite calm in the morning, but later on progress to something. We are hoping and praying that the situation remains the same as of today. And allow me to rope in my panelists now. And to you, Bishop, I'll pick it from where the chair of SUPKEM has mentioned in terms of dialogue. And looking at the dialogue, you, as the clergy, you've called for dialogues, but that has not happened. Let's look at the international community. I think it's a couple of days back, even the United Nations sent a letter to Kenya saying that we do not like what we are seeing in the country. And yesterday, I think 13 envoys did actually also have their input in regards to the dialogue. But from what we are seeing, we are not headed towards dialogue because both sides have maintained a hard-line stance. Your pick.
Thank you very much. Now, dialogue is a process, and it's a process that starts with initially people are isolated. You have one group on the other and another group on the other side, what I would call isolation. And when you are in isolation, the model or approach that you have towards one another is either to treat one another with attacks. You attack and attack and attack, and the other side also attack. That isolation with the attack moves now into the stage of hostility. And at the stage of hostility, you now begin to treat the other person as an enemy. And when you start treating the other side as an enemy, you make attempts to destroy them, decimate them, not give them an opportunity. If some progress has to be made, that view of these are our enemies needs to shift slowly towards these are our competitors. An enemy, you think of killing them, you think of destroying them, you think of finishing them. And sometimes in politics, Machiavellian approach is to destroy your competitor and destroy them completely so that they are not able to rise up at all. And sometimes our political leaders take on that kind of an approach. Now, if we move on to the stage of competitor, a competitor is someone that you are running a race with and you are competing, and you don't treat them as an enemy. You basically are competing. They are not your enemy, but by virtue of the way that our national elections are held, one person would come out at the top. Perhaps that's also a situation that we need to examine in the ongoing basis about the issue of winner takes it all, because I think sometimes someone has spent billions of shillings campaigning and then they don't get even a tail of an animal. They would have wished they got something. So the situation of the winner takes it all perhaps is something that we could address by also giving the opposition side a prominent role to play, an officially recognized role that they play within the government of Kenya. That way, even if you lose and you are an official opposition leader, you do know you still have a role to play that is recognized in Kenya. We do not have that. Now, if we want to do competition, we'll be able to reach that point where now they are not enemy, but we are basically competing. I have won, you have lost. We can still pick up ourselves and work together. But we need to shift it from competition and go ahead to a stage where we reach partnership. And in partnership, we are saying that although you may have lost, we actually can build ourselves together and work together to bring the country towards some head start. And at that point, that's where you then begin to negotiate and dialogue. And in dialogue, you are negotiating. So what role would you play? Yes, this is the role that I would play. What role are within the laws that are defined that you should be playing? And we pick up on those roles. Now, it does appear like attempts have been made to reach out and have some kind of negotiations and discussions. And committees were set up from both sides, which were representative of the various factions. They started negotiating, but there was no goodwill and trust. Because as they came together, negotiations and dialogue requires that there be some sense of goodwill, that we actually are working towards a common direction rather than we want to take the largest chunk out of the negotiations and give you the minimalist kind of position. And I think that's what our leaders have sometimes taken. And as a result of that, although we are engaging in dialogue, the dialogue is not getting far because there is no trust and there is no goodwill. If we had taken the approach of having a trust at the very beginning, when these committees were formed, when some of these tensions started building, we would not be where we are at. Sometimes I also think it is because of our leadership, ego and personality, desire to be in dominance. So a desire to show who is actually the strongest, who is the most powerful, or who is the most influential, sometimes takes us down this road, so that it is basically hubris, is basically human assertion of what we want to achieve and how we want to be in dominance. Now, if we took care of that, we would not again come to this situation where there's some kind of humility among us, some kind of brokenness. Coming from a Christian perspective, the Bible tells us, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. That if there is an attitude that in our hearts we want to be peacemakers, and people who are taking initiatives and acting in order to bring peace, we would not be where we are at. But I also understand that although we are discussing this matter here, that not everyone would be happy with peace. Because peace means bringing in, for example, if the government was to bring in the opposition, and the handshake is not what some people want. We don't want a handshake, because a handshake means there's some reorganizations around the government. So not everyone would be pleased with peace. And so the two leaders from both sides may actually be captives to some of their captains, where their captains are also wanting to have a say in what is happening. So if we go that direction, what will be there for me? Now, if these captains can also be reined in, so that together we head towards a dialogue, and dialogue can be a dialogue, we talk of dialogue of the head, where we agree on ideologies. We talk of dialogue of the hand, where we actually say we are going to together some things, and then we talk of dialogue of the heart, where we make a commitment in our heart that this is the way that we are going. I think this can be possible if we do not treat one another in hostility as enemies. If we move from competition and head towards partnership, we can actually be able to head towards some direction in dialogue.
Dr. Joyce, let me build from what the Bishop has talked about, which is quite interesting and quite true, that after every election cycle, we have winners and losers. And the crafters of the 2010 Constitution, and that is why we do not have an office of the official opposition in the Constitution. We are talking about majority and minority, because they had envisaged something more of a cohesive government. Because at the end of the day, legislation is part of the government. The three arms of government still, in as much as they are independent, they also need to work towards ensuring that Kenyans get the goods, services, and everything that Kenyans should get as envisaged in the Constitution. Now, we have claims that we need to create the office of the official opposition and structure it in a way so that we may have clear definition and lines that this is where the government is, this is where the opposition is. Something that was not envisaged in the Constitution. I would like you to talk about that, because at the end of the day, it does not bring what we want in terms of the cohesiveness and as envisaged in the 2010 Constitution.
Thank you very much for that question. I want to take it up from there and just remind ourselves, we have in chapter 15 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, we do have constitutional commissions and independent offices. And one of the objects of these bodies is to promote constitutionalism, meaning there is need to adhere to the Constitution as is. Now, am I saying we don't need this other office? No. What I'm saying is, as it is now, we need to have to adhere to the Constitution. But thereafter, if we feel the Constitution is not serving us as should, the same Constitution gives us a way of amendment. And we should go in the right direction and amend the Constitution so that at least if we require that office, then we have it in the Constitution. But as long as we don't have it in the Constitution, then we are not going to go very far in this direction. But from what Bishop has said, we need dialogue. It is when we sit together and dialogue and agree to do together that then we say, now, this section of the Constitution is not serving us, and therefore we want to change that part of the Constitution because it requires majority of Kenyans, if not all Kenyans, for the Constitution to be amended. And therefore, as much as we have these constitutional bodies clamoring and making sure that we adhere to constitutionalism, then we also need everybody to come together and agree that the Constitution we have right now has served us for the last 13 years and it needs change. And if it needs change, these are the sections that need change. But until such a time when it has been changed, let us take care of Article 37. Let us go unarmed, peacefully, and do our picketing, do our assemblies, present our memoranda, but make sure that the rights of other people are taken care of. We in the National Gender and Equality Commission are entrusted with 7 different groups to ensure their rights are not infringed on. And one of those groups I talked of earlier on is the children. Now, today we are speaking here when the children in Nairobi, in Mombasa, and in Kisumu are not in school. Now their right to education has been taken away under the guise, if you wish, of having them protected because they are supposed to be protected. But what about the PWDs? When we are throwing those stones, have we thought of this person who is on wheelchair? Have we thought of this person who is on crutches and cannot run? And we infringing on their rights? They have their own right to assemble and to walk in this country freely and to be taken with dignity. But we have not taken care of that. I keep on telling people, children don't say when they will be born. And then we have these mothers, expectant mothers. And in Nairobi, they go to what we call the garage, Pumwani maternity. Now, there are riots in Jacaranda And if there are riots in Jacaranda, this mother is not likely to leave the house to go to the hospital to deliver the Kenyan who will run this country next year. And if they are not able to reach there, then what does this mean? The life of the mother, the life of the child are at stake. Are we taking care of the women in this country? And you'll find pregnant mothers are not out there rioting. They are not there out there carrying stones. I've checked. I've not seen them. And if there are a few, I'm yet to come across them. So, and they have their rights. And children don't say, I cannot be born during maandamano. There are those that will be born today. There are those that will be born tomorrow, whether there is maandamano or no maandamano. So we should think, when then we arm ourselves, what we are doing to ourselves.
Okay.
The older members of society that we take care of, let me just say a word about them. They tend to go back and sit in the houses. They don't want to venture out. But how many of them have been hit by what we call the stray stones, the stray bullets? Some of them are asthmatic, and then there is this gadget that has been thrown, and they are having tear gas, and some of them end up dying. Let us be calm in this nation and take care of the rights of every member of society. In short, I want to tell all of us, let's adhere to the Constitution as is, and if we feel we need to change it, let us change it as per the dictates of the very Constitution.
All right, well said. And indeed, we're going to be looking still at the most vulnerable, the elderly, the pregnant mothers. We also have the children.
Yeah.
And exactly what example are we showing them when we have these mandamanos, which are quite chaotic? But let's take a quick break. We'll be back with our panelists. You're watching KBC News Check. We are looking at the state of the nation, and especially today after the mandamanos that we are keeping keen on to ensure that as a national broadcaster, we also foster peace and cohesion in our country. We'll also be looking at the business situation. I told you earlier on in Nairobi, it more or less looks like a weekend or a ghost town or a public holiday, but it's a day that Kenyans are supposed to be working, and more specifically those who rely on their day-to-day endeavors to put food on their tables. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I can bet you that they're running up and down trying to solve this.
One of the biggest clearing and forwarding companies in East Africa is about to be hit by one of the biggest money scandals in the country.
I think we can use her.
Why do you want her?
You're not the one to decide who works here, Nick.
I think I am.
You should ask Mama Paul.
Is there anything I need to know?
You're the boss, right?
If you keep digging the wrong holes, you'll end up burying yourself.
Well, let's fight.
You're sick.
Hey, what's happening?
I'm gonna love you when you're here with me, and love you when you're gone. Do what you want, as long as you're with me. Say what you want, as long as I hear you call every name. I'm still in love with you, boy. Let us go to the land of love.
When I come home, everything should be alright. So mommy, hold on.
Make me lie when I don't want to. Make someone else some kind of unknowing fool. Make me stay.
No, never.
Eh?
Never.
Wewe nakuona ni mzee, mbona una tabia kama za mtu haelewi nini anafanya?
Hapana, nasema no.
Na wewe mshtakiwa, wewe unakubali mashtaka ama bado unakataa?
No, never. Between me and this young man, who sent you? Who sent you to you alone?
Ngoja, young man ni nani?
Kuna mahali wewe umetoa hata mishumari ama nyundo, nyumba sitengenezwe? Hapana, si ndio? Ngoja, shut up young boy.
Wewe.
Kwa nini mmevaa jacket sinaenda kuwa nini? Hii ni expensive na hii is very cheap. Why?
Ukiangalia this is real leather.
This is the real weather. Yes. Mali ya sungura. Kuja unusia nanuka ng'ombe. Kuja usikuje.
Goodness. They escaped and left Sergio behind.
What can he do to me, huh? Kill me? I know he's capable of it, but I'm not afraid of him. He doesn't scare me, Mother. Anyway, I'm glad he's suffering.
You have to put that girl in her place. You can't just allow her to show us disrespect in that way. You better show her who the man of the house is.
I am here to make sure these cases are solved. Let me start with you. Las Bandidas.
Welcome back. This is KBC, and in time for News Check, we are having a roundtable discussion here with our panelists in regards to the state of the nation, and especially in the wake of the Azimio demos today. And we are also having our reporters on the ground who are updating us on what is currently happening. We also have Dr. Joyce Mutinda, who is the chairperson, National Gender and Equality Commission, Hassan Olenando, who is the chairman of SUPKEM, not to mention Julius Wambua, who is the secretary general of the Political Parties Liaison Committee, and Bishop Callisto Odede, presiding bishop at the CITAM. And before we go back to our live discussion, let's first of all cross over to the Nairobi Central Business District to know exactly how the business situation is there. And right now we are joined by Frederick Mwoki, as you can see on your screen, who has been keeping tabs with what is happening at the CBD. Most businesses and even transport has been quite affected. Mwoki, over to you.
Good morning to you, Ben, Troy, Jue, and all Kenyans wherever you're watching us from. This is the Great KBC, and welcome to this live broadcast. We're coming to you live from the Nairobi Central Railway Station, and behind me is just the railway stage. And on normal day, this place is a beehive of activities, but today that has not been witnessed so far, owing to the ongoing protests brought about by the escalating high cost of living. And matatu operators in this area are yet to make the are yet to resume normal operations, because since the wee hours of today, the business has been highly disrupted, and I had made different stops in within the city to also assess the situation. And small and medium entrepreneurs are also worried about what is going to happen if the series of the plant demos continues for 3 consecutive days. Normal operations are yet to resume, and it is a concern for many matatu operators within the Nairobi CBD, and especially this Nairobi Railway Central Station. And a few minutes ago, I had a chit chat with the station manager of Nairobi Central Railway Station, and he confirmed that some of the trips that are planned on a daily basis have been disrupted and called off, owing to the low turnout of pedestrians or Kenyans who are able to access the services when it comes to the daily operations within the Nairobi city, the Nairobi CBD. So there have been great concerns from many small and medium entrepreneurs about the flow of cash, which is expected to reduce owing to the ongoing protests. And a cross-section of them are also worried that if these plant demos continue, or the protests continue for the next 2 days, or the next 3 days as planned by the Azimio coalition, then they are worried that the Kenya's economy will turn into a downturn. But we're expecting to see, we're just waiting to see what will happen before the day ends, because it's not as normal as planned. Just look at this Nairobi railway stage. On normal days, this place is a bit of activities. Remember, even the mama mbogas and the small and medium entrepreneurs, they are on a daily basis. They usually make the stops here to, make their ends meet. But that has not been witnessed today, and we don't know what is going to happen. But we are hoping that before the day ends, if no more operations will resume. But we are anticipating that not to happen because from the look of things, if a majority of Kenyans have not accessed the Nairobi Central Business District today due to fears of maybe what might come out of the planned demos. But we'll keep you more posted about what will happen within the Nairobi Central Business District and the outskirts of Nairobi when it comes to daily business by small and medium entrepreneurs, because business has not been as normal on normal days. It has been heavily disrupted. We'll get in touch with various small and medium entrepreneurs within the CBD, and we'll keep you posted about what will might happen before the day culminates. Back to you, Ben Troy. Enjoy.
Thank you, Frederick Moki, live from the railway station. And as you can see, parked vehicles behind. It's quite a dent to the Kenya economy. And now on the bottom of your screen, you can see my colleague Achola Simon, who is also keeping a keen eye on what is happening in Kisumu. Remember, in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, all day scholars in days and secondary school are not going to school. And that is not the only thing that is happening. Also, the business has been hit. But let's have that conversation with Achola Simon. How is the lakeside city of Kisumu, Achola?
Great, thank you very much, Ben, Troy, Njue. Kisumu CBD remains largely a deserted scene with small-scale traders, and of course, the public service vehicles are opting to keep off the CBD. And of course, this is advised by the fact that the opposition chief had actually called for demonstrations today. And as is the case, the CBD remains largely deserted with a handful of people stationed at various points, and especially border stationed at various strategic points in town, hoping that they can actually be used to ferrying those that actually want public service vehicle services or public transport services. But that has been the case. The locals have also kept off the CBD, with only a few of them actually just showing up in the CBD just to check on exactly what is happening. And my colleague, if he can actually just show this road is usually the main Kakamega Kisumu highway, and usually a big hive of activities. As we speak right now, is actually deserted. No vehicle is actually plying along this route. Very many illegal roadblocks have actually been erected along the way, and it takes some convincing and effort to try and navigate through those roadblocks, and all the way from Mamboleo, where we actually visited today in the morning, coming all the way to the famous Kondele roundabout, and up until here in the CBD. There are a number of illegal roadblocks that have actually been erected along the route. And now you will be wanting to know what exactly is happening at Kondele, because that is usually the epicenter of demonstrations or resistance in this region. We were there a couple of minutes, probably 20 or so minutes ago, and what we actually witnessed was that demonstrators had actually gathered and converged on one side of the roundabout, whereas police or security agents had actually also gathered and stationed themselves at a vantage position on the other side. The one number of policemen also who are actually guarding on top of the flyover. That usually is not the case in the past. What usually happens is that they usually just take their vantage position near the Kondele police station, demonstration, but today they were actually holding vantage position on the flyover. And what had been happening is that we also saw a number of security officers actually just trying to engage demonstrators in terms of ensuring that they do not turn violent or actually gather to participate in these particular demonstrations. When you walk through the town all the way to the main CBD on the other side, you also realize that most shops remained closed, and of course the locals have actually kept off the CBD. The police are actually taking vantage position around town, and they, unlike in the past where they would actually just gather here and in Kondele, what we've realized today is that they are actually divided into smaller units and stationed in each and every corner of this CBD. That of course are enabling them to repulse any attempts by the demonstrators first to gather, and more importantly also to try and demonstrate or march towards the CBD. What we can actually report now also, Ben, Troy and Joy, is the fact that we've not witnessed very serious activities in this particular CBD, unlike in the past where we saw destruction of property and of course running battles between the police and the locals. We are yet to witness that. What has happened is that the police have been very swift in terms of ensuring that the locals do not gather in larger groups, and each and every time they've tried to actually gather in large groups, police have moved swiftly to try and ensure that they are dispersed. The other thing is that they've also ensured that each and every time an illegal roadblock has actually been erected, they've actually moved swiftly to ensure that the youth that are actually erecting those roadblocks have actually been dispersed, one, and then two, have actually opened up the roadblock. My colleague can actually just take pictures of exactly what is happening. On the other side is that you can clearly see that there was an illegal roadblock that had actually been erected at that place, and what happened is that police moved swiftly to ensure that one, the youth that had actually gathered at that place had actually been dispersed, and then two, also they've actually tried as much as they can to ensure that they remove the stones that have actually been used to block that particular road. Other than that, there's nothing really happening here in Kisumu County, and of course we'll be keeping a keen eye on what will be happening in Kondele, what will be happening in Kachoka, and of course the informal settlements where usually is the epicenter, or where there are a beehive of activities in terms of running battles between the police and the locals. And we will of course be filling in our listeners and viewers of exactly what will be happening in this region. Back to you, Ben, Troy and Jue, unless you have any question as pertains what exactly is going on in this region.
Thank you, Achola Simon. As you've seen, he is coming to us live from the lakeside city of Kisumu. And as you can see, the roads look like Christmas in the morning because they are deserted. Looking at, they are more or less, the one of the road I've seen is almost closed. And as he has said, is that police are there. Kisumu being one of the nerve center when it comes to the Azimio demos. And today they said as well, we also be having mandamanos in that lakeside city. And Bishop, I will come to you with this question. We were talking about the vulnerable people earlier on with Daktari, and as you can see, those are the same roads where you see the mamambogas, you see the boda guys. These guys are also vulnerable today because they are not going to do any business. And even the small shops, as you've seen in Nairobi, the small businesses that have been opened, they need the customers. And a lot of customers have shied away from going to open their businesses.
I think the economic impact of the demonstrations, when you shut major business centers or cities in one day, the kind of economic impact, perhaps sometimes we have not given it the right kind of value. Because if we weighed it properly, not just for the small-time businesses, but even the major businesses, the kind of losses that they have, the revenue to the government, and you begin to weigh them all, the impact is extremely great economically. So that impact is even greater for people who depend on a day-by-day income. that I need to go to the industrial area, I need to go to sell some boga before I come back with my 100, 200 shillings. And they are not able to do that kind of business when we've created an atmosphere that is not hospitable to this kind of arrangement. So the small business people, the mamambogas and those who repair bicycles and the like, they actually are going to experience this a lot much more on a day like this, more than perhaps the larger businesses. But when we look at it in the whole, the fact that even the larger businesses are shut down, matatus are not in the road as usual, as we've seen with that emptiness on our roads, I think the loss for the country is major. It's a major loss for the country. And one would pray and urge our leaders that this would not go on for 2 days, not even for 3 days. It should not even have taken place for 1 day if we were willing to come together to dialogue, because then we would ease the tension. People would go around their businesses without having to go through some of these very drastic moments.
Doc, if you look at the economic dungeon, so to speak, which we are having, we are just post-COVID. We still have the drought. Some parts have never received rainfall for the last couple of seasons. And now you see the government talking about 3 billion every day in terms of the lost revenue and maybe the lost money for circulation. What comes to your mind when you talk about our leaders and governors? Do they instill the confidence that their offices and the office that they hold?
Thank you very much. And when you talk about small and medium enterprises, not leaving out the micro enterprises, that is where we talk of the mama mboga. These are vulnerable groups. And that is where you find even our PWDs having small businesses. So when you realize all of them are not transacting business today, and I dare say some of them live from hand to mouth, then it's like we are infringing on their right to life. We are sending them almost to an early grave. But at this point in time, we need to ask ourselves, there is this group we call the youth that are supposed to be, if so to speak, we usually talk of our youth as people who are between the age of 18 and 35. That is the group that is going to be dealing with transport. And we have just seen from Kisumu, transport movement is no longer there. And actually there was a roadblock erected by the very youth. Allow me to call upon our youth not to be misused. In fact, in the Constitution, the youth are not supposed to be misused. And I think when we give them some little money, and when I say we give them the little money, it can be as little as 100 shillings to go and erect that roadblock. I think we are missing it. We need to protect our youth from exploitation, because that is exploitation. What would I do with 100 shillings? But also to the youth themselves, they should not let themselves be misused, because they are being misused, some of them to close those roads, and then they stop the business for their colleagues. Because if what is happening in Kisumu is anything to go by, then they are stopping their colleagues from working. And they need to know that they should not stop their colleagues from working. And again, allow me also, having looked at what is happening in Kisumu, to congratulate our police. They have peacefully gone and removed those barriers. That is the way it should be. When you find people want to go out and picket, it's not a question of beating them up. No, talk to them. They are Kenyans. Peacefully. Let the both sides be quite peaceful. So what we are doing, our economy is going to the drains just because of having to riot for something that we should not be rioting. If we want to picket, let us do it peacefully. We don't have to have stones. We don't have to have what we have taken to the road to go and make a roadblock. No, let us walk. And I like these people who go and have branches and they're saying haki yetu. Continue with haki yetu, but don't touch on other people. Let people open the shops. Now, shops are closed in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Nairobi. No business is taking place. For how long are we going to tolerate this? I think we need to come out of it. And as a country, we need to grow up. And look at other countries. How do they go around with their own processions? They walk at the walkway. They don't even stop the vehicles. They walk at their walkway and say what they have to say and carry their memorandum and give to that public office. I'm sure if they were peaceful, no police officer will bother other than just telling them to keep to the pavement so that the traffic moves on. Nobody will come to hit at somebody who is not violent. That is something we need to know. As much as we are in a constitutional commission and we don't take sides, it is good to say the facts as they are. If you go and start using stones, then the police have a duty to protect property and protect the people of this country, and they will do it. If you go peacefully, they will also come peacefully. Don't think that they want to spend the cartridges. They do not want tear gas. It is bought with our taxes. Let us not spend a lot of money buying tear gas instead of development. We should be sinking boreholes and doing other things. We have just come from drought. We should be mitigating this drought and not going ahead and then doing things that are going to be disastrous to this country. Because what I saw previously was disaster. And if there is anybody thinking of doing that this afternoon, they should just stop for the sake of this nation.
Indeed. And talking about the young people, Bishop, before we toss the ball to Hashim, looking at, I remember yesterday in the morning I was watching PLO Lumumba. He was having a joint interview on Idhaa Taifa and right here on KBC Channel 1. And he said the maandamanos that we see now have mutated because he reminisced on 1992 when there was clamor for multipartyism in the country. James Orengo, Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Kenneth Jindo Matiba, Martin Shukuku, just to mention but a few, they would hold hands and lead the peaceful maandamanos. Right now what we see is what Doc has talked about. Young people throwing stones and then the others just come later on in the afternoon and actualize that. What example are we setting for our young people? When we hear about school unrest, and I'm quite sure you have a lot of pastoral programs at CITAM, when we hear about school unrest, we blame it on drug abuse and proliferation of illicit liquor. But we forget the example that we are setting for our young people. I'd like you to touch on that.
Thank you. I think the situation with the youth is, first of all, a very complex situation because it brings in a number of things at the same time. One is unemployment. We have quite a number of our young people who are unemployed. So as a result of that, it is very easy for them to be coerced into activities that are detrimental even for their future. In other words, someone can easily give them some money for them to do something that's not right. We have quite a number which are in substance abuse, drug, alcoholism and the like. We do have a number of youth who are under peer pressure, being pushed by their colleagues to get involved in certain kinds of activities. But as we think of them in the maandamanos, majority of the people, especially the 20 or so who have died in the last maandamano, actually came to be as a result of, there were mainly young people who were shot. Because they were the ones who were on the forefront. And this generally has been seen worldwide, that it's easier to get younger people to agitate for ideas. When people like Orengo and the others were on the streets in the 1992s and the like, they were relatively younger people, unlike what's happening today. And so they were willing to go out. But also initially, I think having been alive at that time and been already a worker at that time, I do remember that a number of them actually started very peacefully until there were conflicts with the authorities and the police, and then they were incarcerated. But just to mention, there is hope for young people if they are given direction. You've talked of role models. What kind of role models are we setting for our young people? Now, it seems like we send them out so that they begin stoning the vehicles. We come out later in the afternoon, which may not be very, very good role models, that we can actually talk with these young people. And I have seen even police authorities. I remember one of the mandamanos, I can't remember last year, when we saw in Kisumu, Kondele, the policemen, actually after the elections, the policemen were leading with a band because an NGO had organized the young people and called the policemen, instead of coming with guns, they came with bands and they were leading the band, and the young people were marching with them. There was no problem at all in the city because everyone did what was not expected. And I think sometimes maybe that creative idea, instead of just law enforcement that seeks to restrain people by excessive use of force, we think of law enforcement that engages even the people in a dialogue. This is your country. You can't go this direction. You're actually destroying our economy. Let's work together. You want to demonstrate? We will give you protection. Let's work together. You walk on this street, and then when you're through, you come back. If you want to gather, be addressed. Yes, let's work together. But now young people, when they see policemen, they pick up stones. They start throwing, and policemen start throwing tear gas. That's not a good model that we should be adopting. So my encouragement to our young people is that actually we can change the country, and our statistics in the country are showing that we are almost 71% young people under 35s. It's important for us to give them an opportunity to get into the leadership rather than talking of them being the future leaders also.
Thank you indeed. Let me now toss the ball back to Hashim on the other side of the studio.
Well, quite a candid conversation there with Dr. Joyce Mutinda as well as Bishop Kalisto Odede. Now, I want to take that particular conversation and start here with the SUPKEM chairman, that is Hassan Olenado. Interesting conversations that are coming on the other side of the studio. The question will be now, Chairman, if the religious organizations, professional bodies were included in the bipartisan talks that were started with the government and the opposition, will those bipartisan talks have been successful?
Yeah, maybe, because I remember, I think we even issued a statement then, and many other professional bodies also did, that we thought it is important to expand the bipartisan talks to include other Kenyans, so that the final product is the one that can be taken to Parliament. So it's not necessarily, should not be necessarily a product of Parliament alone. It should be something that is done outside. And you can also remember the efforts of the BBI initiative. The BBI initiative was actually intended to heal some of the concerns which the chair of the Gender Commission was actually talking about in terms of our constitutional issues. Whenever, as a country, when we think that we need to do something, we need, of course, to do alongside the constitution, within the constitutional framework. And unfortunately, today in this country, we have a constitution that has served us for 13 years. What we were supposed to do is to audit that constitution, check on what has worked, what has not worked, and what needs improvement. If we could have done that in a peaceful environment and also non-political environment, then I think we could have achieved. BBI was a good thing. The only thing that BBI did, it went an extra mile of actually interfering with the critical components of the Constitution, including even actually removing or undermining certain sections which are very, very critical in the Constitution. So it brought about unconstitutionality within a constitutional process. And that's what Kenyans thought, no, I think it is not the right thing to do. But it has very good proposals. Some of the proposals we contained in BBI were very, very good. It could have even addressed the issue of what Kenyans call the winner takes it all. By the way, in a constitutional democracy like ours, the winner have to take it all. There is no, it's not about, you take half or I take half. There is nothing it is not provided for in a constitutional democracy. The constitutional democracy, the winner, you take it all. What is required is that the other party that did not get anything, then should be a constitutional responsibility of how they can actually hold those who have won to account, which unfortunately in our part we did not do. We borrowed the American system, but unfortunately we have not reached there as a people where we could be able to play our roles within that, whatever. Because you have an individual in the name of the Prime Minister who has a difference of 200,000 votes with the current president. Then he's out there. He doesn't have, he's not a member of parliament, he's not in parliament, he's not anywhere. He's not even an MCA. You know, and this is the person who gotten these votes. The only difference is 200,000 for him to could have become the president of the Republic of Kenya. So in essence, he has a half of the country as following him. But he has no platform to provide the leadership. So, and I think that's where we went wrong as a country. We could have actually created that office of the official leader of the opposition, where the Prime Minister could have been actually leading his troops in Parliament. By him being outside Parliament, then he becomes very vulnerable. And that is why you find that he's losing members of Parliament. You know, members of Parliament are defecting because now they are like, allow me to use this word, I don't like it using it, because we have those people. They are like orphans in Parliament. Okay, so because they don't have the leader, they don't have the father figure in Parliament, so everyone is on its own. So what happens? They trade in. You know, Kenya is an interesting country with corruption. They trade in and find their interest, what they can do, and then they disappear from the scene when they are required to push for the agenda. So I think what we need to do going forward, we have to have a conversation around restructuring our politics so that we can actually put in place that particular office. So that we have this person having a national role and responsibility in the constitution that we are actually able to look at upon him. Because today we address him as the leader of the opposition, while he's not. Raila Odinga is not the official leader of the opposition. We don't have that position. So, but we don't have any other term to refer to him to. So we need to look at those things. Even downwards, when you go to the devolved units of government, you know, the governors are also in the same situation. Somebody contested, he became number 2, has a huge following within the county, but he has no role. You know, he just goes back and disappears. So they are able to incite the citizens against the sitting leadership, whatever level they are. So I think it is something that we need to look at. Something I also think we must adhere to the Constitution is the issue of the audits of our electoral process. I think we need to be having a process after the elections, which actually, by the way, provided, and I think my brother from the political party liaisons is better positioned to explain that, but let me just begin it by saying it is important that after elections, there is always supposed to be a process of checking on the system that is whether, so that there should be an improvements of areas that there are weakness and areas that needs to be improved, they can be improved, and other things for Kenyans to understand how did our electoral process perform in our elections. But what we have been experiencing in this country, unfortunately, is that after elections, IEBC on their own goes to somewhere in a workshop. They sit on their own, they audit what they did, and they bring the report to the Kenyan people without in any participation of other key stakeholders who could have actually improved or make a contribution to improve the electoral process. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. And finally, the question about the handshake. We are also misusing, as the country, the word handshake. And to us, everything now, when you talk about dialogue, it is like saying, let us share government. Actually, that is not that's not the handshake, or that's not dialogue. Dialogue is about sitting down and reasoning together. It's not about, let us sit down and share government. No. What especially us from the religious sector, what we have been saying, when we talk about dialogue, we are not calling President Ruto to divide or to give Prime Minister a portion of his government. No. We are saying, can you sit down and actually have a conversation on the issues that are being raised by the Prime Minister and his coalition, so that we can have a way of how we can address those issues. But now when you talk about it, you know, you see people saying, oh, you know, we are not ready for the handshake. We are not. No, it's not about handshake. It's about critical issues, because Raila Odinga and his brigade are Kenyans, they are citizens. So they have valid issues that they want to be listened to, and they want those things to be addressed by who?
by the President of the Republic of Kenya. So those are some of the things that I think it is important that we have an opportunity of dialogue. And then finally, let me say this. I've heard the mention of the international community. Kenya is an independent country, it's an independent state. Our friends are just friends and development partners. They may never come directly to want to lead our processes. So sometimes we really condemn them unnecessarily because they cannot come and guide us or midwife our own processes. But they just observe what we are doing. If they want to give a word or two of advice, they can do that. But we cannot expect them to come and actually lead and say, oh, we want you to do that, we want you to do that. They can't do that because it is actually against the protocols of whatever. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Picking it up from where the chairman has left it, Julius, is there enough good political will in this particular country to even consider some of the constitutional reforms chairman is proposing?
There is political goodwill, but the challenge we are facing is that as you talk, as you engage in shuttle diplomacy among the main players, you realize that everybody across the board is interested in going through this process. But the biggest hurdle to this is a very low threshold of trust between ourselves, among ourselves. We Kenyans desire a peaceful country. And the very fact that you can see the streets are quiet, and the very fact that we are on this table discussing dialogue, there's goodwill in this thing. However, let me say this. We must understand where the rain started beating us as a country. Even if you are a professional destroyer, or a professional ruiner, if there is such an English word, you cannot run down an economy in 8 or 9 months. The rot that we are facing today started a long time ago. And the youths who are going out into the streets, following leaders to cause mayhem, must understand that the same leaders were in government some time back. And they might have contributed in one way or another to the solutions we are having today and to the problems we are having today. And the same very youths who are being told that your MPs are being bought in parliament consciously went to the ballot and voted for those same types of leaders. I believe there might have been others who were unviable, but they chose that particular leader. So we must understand that as Kenyans, we all have a stake in this thing. We all have a part to play in this thing. And let me say this. Our constitution, it is time we started auditing it. Because we seem to be having some cock-ups here and there. We had 52 districts before the current constitution came on. The same districts were converted into counties. These are colonial districts that were created on the basis of tribe and even sometimes clan. So you go to Machakos, you find that we have a county government and everybody employed there is a Mukamba. You go to Kisumu and you find it's a government of the people who live around there. You go, every county is turning into a tribal thing. So we need to ask ourselves, how shall we achieve cohesion in this country when we are turning Kenya into a country of 47, let's say 48 or so, 46 tribal fiefdoms? Maybe we need another matrix. Maybe we need to go back to the provinces where you have more people in one area, therefore you learn to live together. And about the winner takes it all. It is sad that half the country feels they are left out, another half feels they are in government. Maybe we need to go to a proportional representation system, whereby you vote for a political party, the political party presents a list of individuals to be nominated to parliament should they achieve certain thresholds. That way, even issues like a third gender rule will not be an issue, because it is going to be a zebra list. Man, woman, we'll have youth, PWD, marginalized. We will have a very balanced country. And we will achieve cohesion in a better way. And for the first time, we will not have a political party having its MPs only come from one region or another one. Maybe you find that because you come from a certain area, or you worked around that area, and you go that.
Okay.
Now, finally, let me just speak about the tiny economy. There is a tiny economy we are forgetting. That person who borrows 1,000 bob from the Hustler Fund, buys some bogas, and makes 300 in the evening, has a small baby, newborn baby in the house, and that 300 shillings gives that baby some balanced diet. If the current condition continues, and you can see the vibandas, all of them are closed, that 1,000 shilling is going to be turned into food. 3 days down the line, there will be no food for that baby. 3 weeks down the line, that baby will be in a malnutrition clinic being given food supplements. That is something we are forgetting. If you go to Karen and all these other, there are things called ladders where you have unga that can last for about 3 months. What about if this person from the Kibanda made it impossible for you to replenish your unga in Runda? That is the position you are putting that person in. Because you are an MP, you can adjust your salary at will, but this person cannot change the price of the sukuma wiki they sell. Let us be considerate to the young Kenyans.
Now, that is the conversation currently ongoing, the National Cohesion and Dialogue. Troy, you can hear constitutional reforms clearly coming out on this side of the table. Maybe is the Bishop, that is Odede, as well as Dr. Joyce Mutinda, feeling the same?
Actually, I was just still pick it on the constitutional front and direct that question to the chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission. And Article 37 is the one that gives Kenyans the right to demonstrate, to picket, and also present petition. And there have been calls for the amendment of that article because we are having a lot of violence in the country. Do you think that the inclusion or the amendment of that article to include taking personal responsibility when it comes to demonstrations, do you think that maybe could curb what we are witnessing? Because every time you mention demonstrations or mandamanos in Kenya, the first thing that comes to mind is closing business, throwing stones, barricades. That is exactly what comes to mind. Could this tame?
Thank you very much. There is the issue of amendment of the Constitution. And as I said earlier on, this is provided for in the very Constitution, and to be precise, in Chapter 16. And we have only 2 ways of amending our Constitution of Kenya 2010, and that is through the parliamentary initiative as provided for in Article 256, and then the popular initiative as provided for in Article 257. So to begin with, we need to take one route. We can't take both. Is it Parliament that is going to initiate, or is it a popular initiative? There was, and when His Excellency the President wrote to Parliament a memorandum, there was a feel that now it is Parliament that will take the lead. And that would have gone on. And then somewhere along the way, it was felt that the UDA has got more members. They have the majority. And therefore, what will come to table will be what is UDA, and they will not take care of ODM. Now, we need to ask ourselves, what about the 88 other parties? Because our brother has just told us, we have 90 political parties that have been registered in this country. And they are members of the Political Party Liaison Committee. Now, with that in mind, if I were to be asked as an individual, I would say we need to go the popular initiative way. Now, if we have to go the popular initiative way, we have to have a give and take, because who is going to do the referendum? It is going to be IEBC. Do we have commissioners at IEBC? No. And therefore, I get back to what Bishop said. We need to sit back, dialogue, And when we dialogue, part of what we shall unlock is that IEBC. So that we have the IEBC in position, then we can talk of going to the popular initiative. But as is, I must say, this particular article, that is Article 37, is only that people want to misread it. Because it says, if you have to go to demonstrate, do that peacefully and unarmed. Now, that means if I have to get to the street, I don't have to have stones. I do not have to have a panga. I don't need a stick. I should be able to go there and express myself. There is freedom of expression in this country. And therefore, first and foremost, we must know what is provided for in the Constitution. And this is where NGEC stands for constitutionalism. We need to adhere to that first. If we did, then there will be peace to begin with. And we are not going to be affecting the businesses as we have done today. I know today there is peace, but everybody is saying an easy peace because it's not peace as expected. And therefore, if we have, your question was, do we need to amend this constitution? I think we need to amend the constitution as provided for in chapter 16. And if I was to have my take, I would say, let us go for the popular initiative. And before we do that, let us have IEBC up and running. And therefore, we need to put our egos aside and come to table. And if we are not able to talk to one another, I think the religious groups have offered to mediate. Let us allow them that chance to mediate. And then once we put IEBC together, then other things may follow. It doesn't help this country in any way for the two groups to stand aside. The group led by Murungara, Honorable Murungara, and the group by Amolo, standing side by side, does not help. And saying, we have hit a deadlock. It is our country. Nobody will come from outside. It's not the ambassadors. It's not the diplomats that are going to help us. We must help ourselves as Kenyans. Otherwise, if we want them to come and help us, they will help us, they will colonize us once more. And we ran away from colonization, let us not go back there. In a way of neo-colonialism. I don't think our children will take it very lightly when it comes to that.
And Bishop, because we are picking up the pace now because of time, the bipartisan talks did hit a dead end. As the clergy, you've also urged the two political kingpins, that is President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, for dialogue, or consultative dialogue. That has not happened. The international community has also extended their arms so that they may also help us in this dilemma. But as things stand, from where you sit, what is the next course of action?
I think we are not giving up on the possibility of a dialogue. We do know that these initiatives are still ongoing. They have not stopped. And as the initiatives are ongoing, in order to put people on the table of discussion, our hope and our prayer is that as Kenyan leaders, we would put the country above personal interest and personal protection and build some trust that as the two committees or two groups that Dr. Joyce has made reference to, hit a stalemate simply because they were all introducing other items again for discussion. This group is introducing that, the other group wants to limit, and all of that because of mistrust. If we can build trust together, and these groups which had already been appointed, if there is a need to expand them by bringing in, as one of our colleagues mentioned today, bringing in religious leaders or bringing in a few other political parties so that it is a wider representation rather than just the two parties. I think that would help so that there's a bit more soberness. It's not just the two parties who are thinking of their own interest. And as we look ahead to the next few days, we will continue encouraging Kenyans to refrain from violence. If there is picketing, it should be peaceful picketing to allow businesses to run and go on as they should, but also urge the leaders, whether through these groups that had been set aside or through other avenues, to come together so that we can discuss.
All right. Yeah. Maybe you had your final word, Joyce, before we toss the ball back to Hashim and SUPKEM Chair and Sec Gen of the PPLC.
Thank you. I had a final word. I just want to call upon the two political divides, if I may call them that, and to remind them about our vulnerable groups. Let's take care of the children. Let's take care of their rights. Let's take care of the women that we have. You call them mama mbogas. Take care of them so that when they get the hustler funds and any other fund that they get from merry-go-rounds, they can be able to make ends meet. Let's take care of the PWDs so that they are not caught crossfire. Let's take care of the older members of society. Don't kill them as they warm themselves in the house by throwing the stones, the bullets, and what it is. Both sides should keep peace and adhere to what there is in the Constitution, because it says peaceful and unarmed. So both sides should just remain peaceful. And the calm that we are witnessing right now, I would just tell them, let it prevail forever and ever. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Joyce, who is the chairperson, National Gender and Equality Commission. Bishop, I'll give you just 1 minute to also make your closing statements.
My encouragement also is for the faithful community. Let's pray for our country. We do believe that as we pray, people's hearts are touched and softened. So much as we try to engage in dialogue initiatives, let's also pray for our country.
Well said, Bishop Callisto Odede, who is the presiding bishop at CITAM. But we also have another panel on the other side of the studio. Hashim, over to you.
Thank you so much. Those are the words of Dr. Joyce Mutinda as well as Bishop Callisto Odede. Let me go to the chairman of SUPKEM, Hassan Olenado. Chairman, that is the clarion call, to have a dialogue, to have a peaceful nation, because we have been in this kind of situation. So what will be your clarion call, not just to the leaders, but to the Kenyans who are watching you right now?
Two things. I want to urge the clergy, the religious leadership in this country. Kenya is a religious country. Over 90% of Kenyans subscribe to one faith or the other. I want to urge them to continue with prayers, and also the leadership to continue with the work they are doing to reach out to the leadership through whatever means, including shadow diplomacy, to engage the friends of this country to ensure that we remain peaceful in the country. I want to appeal to the citizens, all of us together, that this country is our country. Let us not ban our country, because we have alternative ways of sorting out the challenges that we are facing as a country. We can come back to the table, negotiate, and agree on the way forward. After all, we are the majority. When I talk of the majority, are the people who are not elected. We elect actually the minority of us. But those people who we elect are the minority. So we are the majority. Let us maintain peace. Let us ensure that those of us who wants to go out and do their hustles and do their businesses, travel, let them travel and do so peacefully, including those who want to till their farms and, walk around to do their businesses. Let us allow those who want to do businesses. For those who want to picket, do it peacefully, without interrupting the life of others. Otherwise, let us keep our country to be peaceful.
Thank you so much. Julius, your final remarks?
My take is this. To the political class, we are the minority in this country. The majority are the wananchi. This country does not belong only to us and our interests. We must give the wananchi a system that delivers finality. We should not keep the country on a political trajectory, on a campaign trajectory for 5 good years. Believe you me, today it is His Excellency William Ruto who is in government. He will finish his terms and somebody else will come in. Do unto others what you wish them to do unto you. Let us have a system whereby we give the people who have been elected an opportunity to perform. And also, let us realize that we have been through much as a country, and we can overcome this. Let us drop our hardline positions and let us approach the table, because both the ruling and the opposition and the indifferent will all gain from the results of a genuine, people-centered and Kenya-centered dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That has been our panel. That has been our discussion, the national cohesion and dialogue. If you're just joining us, you've just missed a crucial conversation that started early this morning at 10 a.m. That has been the clarion call, not just from the religious bodies, various organizations, as well as the international community, for calls to dialogue, calling all the political divided to the table, discussing the well-being and welfare of this particular country. We only have one Kenya. That is the message from our panel this morning. Dr. Joyce Mutinda, the chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission; Hassan Olenado, the chairman of SUPKEM; Julius Wambua, member of the Political Parties Liaison Committee; and finally Bishop Callisto Odede, the presiding bishop at Sitam Church. That has been our conversation. Frankly, we do not even have time to read some of your comments, but carry on the conversation both on and off a line. Of course, that has been the situation in this particular country. We have our reporters stationed across the country to bring us up to speed with the current situation in various parts of the country. Also, we have seen and the situation in Mombasa, in Kisumu, as well as in Nairobi. We also do understand we'll be having links from other parts of the country, in Kericho, where the president is also expected there. There is a general calmness. The security apparatus have taken over various streets, ensuring the peace that will be maintained in the country. We have even seen instances where Achola Simon, our reporter in Kisumu, telling us the police were even having a conversation with the residents there to ensure that they do not picket, and if they're picketing, peacefully. That's why you saw Article 37 of the Constitution that they keep referring to clearly state that those pickets must be peaceably and unarmed. Will that be the situation? Of course, we'll keep on updating you on the various situations in the country. For now, I've been your host, Abdiaziz Hashim, as well as Ben Troy on the other side of the studio. Don't go too far. The conversation is ongoing in Tamrini. I do understand my colleague Zainab will be in studio in just a few to carry on with this particular conversation, and our prayer this particular morning from the various panels and from us KBC as well is may reason prevail. Good afternoon.
Chidebere Ibe did this. His illustration of a black fetus went viral. People around the world realized they had never seen themselves represented that way. His picture turned into much more than a drawing.
It was more like a voice speaking out for the black community. Then I had to